Now, a switch is very similar to a hub. It's also a device that has multiple ports that accepts Ethernet connections from network devices. But unlike a hub, a switch is intelligent. A switch can actually learn the physical addresses of the devices that are connected to it, and it stores these physical addresses, called MAC addresses, in its table. So when a data packet is sent to a switch, it's only directed to the intended destination port, unlike a hub where a hub would just rebroadcast the data to every port. So as an example, if this computer here wanted to communicate with this computer over here, the data packet arrives at the switch, and then the switch will look at its table of MAC addresses and matching ports and deliver the data to the correct port. And then the data packet would only go to that computer. So that's the major difference between a hub and a switch. So as a result, switches are far more preferred over hubs because they reduce any unnecessary traffic on the network. A router is a device that routes or forwards data from one network to another based on their IP address. When a data packet is received from the router inspects the data's IP address and determines if the packet was meant for its own network or if it's meant for another network. If the router determines that the data packet is meant for its own network, it receives it. But if it's not meant for its own network, it sends it off to another network. So a router is essentially the gateway of a network. So here we have a private network with its router, and we'll refer to this as the red network, indicated by the red colored screens on the computers. And over here you're going to have different data packets, indicated by their different colors, which represents different IP addresses, and they are going to be entering the red network's router from the internet. Now the router is only going to accept the red data packets, because they are the only ones that are intended for this network. So all of the other data packets, the yellows, blues, greens, etc., will be rejected by this router because they were not intended for this network because their IP addresses were not meant for this network. A lot of people actually think that a modem and a router are the same thing, but they are not. They are different with two separate roles on a network. So I'm going to explain the difference between the two. Now, if you want internet inside your home or business, you have to have a modem. A modem is what brings the internet into your home or business. A modem establishes and maintains a dedicated connection to your internet service provider to give you access to the internet. Now, the reason why you have to have a modem is because of the two different types of signals that are used on a computer and on the internet. A computer only reads digital signals, while signals out on the internet are analog. As analog data comes in from the internet, the modem demodulates the incoming analog signals into a digital signal so that a computer can understand it. And a modem also modulates outgoing digital signals from a computer into an analog signal as it goes out on the internet. And this is where we get the word modem. The word modem means modulator-demodulator, which is exactly what a modem does. It modulates outgoing data from a computer and demodulates incoming data from the internet. Now, a router comes in after the modem. Now, there are different types of routers. There are routers that are used in businesses and larger organizations, and there are smaller routers that are used in homes and small businesses. But they basically do the same thing. But for this video, we're going to use the small office, home office router that most of us are familiar with. Now, a router is what routes or passes your internet connection to all of your devices in your home or business. It directs it to all of your computers, tablets, phones, and so on, so that those devices can access the internet. A typical small office, home office router like this one here will have a built-in switch with multiple ports so that you can connect multiple devices using an Ethernet cable connection. And it also functions as a wireless access point so that wireless devices such as tablets and laptops can have internet access. Now technically you really don't need a router if you only want one of your devices to access the internet. You can just plug that device's network cable directly into the modem, and then you'll be able to access the internet. However, like most homes and businesses, you're going to have multiple devices that need access to the internet, and that's where you would need a router. Now, if you're wondering how hubs and switches relate to routers and modems, especially if you saw my other video where I explained the differences between hubs, switches, and routers, well, keep in mind that most routers will have a built-in switch inside of them. So there's no need to have a switch if you already have a router that has a switch built into it. So for example, a router like this may have a 4-port integrated switch so that you can connect 4 Ethernet cables for your wired devices. So the only time that you may need to add a switch to this network is if you needed more wired connections for your devices. So you can just connect a switch to your router and then add more connections to the switch.